This is a video all about how the homosexuals were targeted during World War II by the Nazis.
Paragraph 175 was an anti-sodomy law that stated, quote, "A male who commits lewd and lascivious acts with another male, or permits himself to be so abused for lewd and lascivious acts, shall be punished by imprisonment." The Nazis targeted gay men in order to purify Germany's population. They viewed gay men as weak and unfit to be soldiers, therefore they had nothing to contribute to society. Being gay was illegal, but the police tolerated the gay community. Prior to the rise of the Nazis, Berlin was the undisputed queer capital of the world. Berlin was home to many gay nightclubs, bars, and restaurants. El Dorado was an incredibly popular gay bar in Berlin, but when Hitler came to power, all gay nightclubs were closed, including El Dorado. Night of the Long Knives occurred on June 30th, 1934. Hitler had many high-ranking Nazi officials murdered in order to exert his power.
The Nazis seemed to only target German homosexual men, and that's because they were considered to be useless since they could not reproduce to provide a new generation of this Aryan race. That's why lesbians were not targeted as much, because they were able to be raped in order to provide those children.
During the war, between 1933 and 1945, an estimated 100,000 men were arrested for violating Nazi Germany's law against homosexuality, and of these, approximately 50,000 were sentenced to prison. An immense amount of people, but how? Nazi leadership never figured out how to conclusively define a homosexual or how to locate them. They wanted a quick solution for eradication, but the inability to accurately identify gay men caused problems. They did, however, take extensive action. The Gestapo, for example, ordered the police to keep lists of all people engaged in homosexual activities, called the Pink List. Police had been compiling these lists since 1900. These lists were garnered from the banned gay clubs, publications, and petitions surrounding gay rights. The closure of all of these methods of communication caused a division among the community. Additionally, many names are said to be from Berlin's Institute for Sexual Research, a safe haven for German gay people. It was shut down and much of its information burned by a mob in 1933.
Propaganda was not easy to find through online sources, and no images were found by Googling. We were able to find the pictures for our presentation in the documentary, paragraph 175. In pre-war Nazi Germany and the beginning of the war, there was most likely a lot of propaganda about homosexuals and the Nazis. In the eyes of the Nazis, homosexuality was seen more as pedophilia, rather than a relationship or just natural love. In the two images, you can see how both show an older man either looking at the rears of the Nazis, the left, or an older man playing with two young boys, the right. The hypocrisy of this was that in both depictions, the older men are Nazis, demonstrating how homosexuals also had the power to create propaganda for the purpose of politically attacking the Nazis. But in truth, the propaganda wasn't wrong about many of the Nazis. And in quite a few instances, Nazis were either gay or pedophiles. The next slide again communicates more propaganda against the Nazis, giving the readers the idea that the Nazis were no better than the homosexuals. Also displays the exaggeration of body parts to most likely generate humor or disgust.
During the Nazi era, it is estimated that 5,000 to 15,000 men were imprisoned as homosexuals, and it is uncertain how many died during the Holocaust. The reason numbers are so uncertain is because they were either immediately gassed and had their records disposed of, and because homosexuality was illegal, many people didn't disclose their sexual orientation. The notable camps for this targeted population are Sachsenhausen, Buchenwald, Dachau, and Mauthausen. It's important to note that on the map, these are labeled as concentration camps, not concentration and extermination camps, and this is because many homosexuals were worked to death instead of gassed. This doesn't mean there weren't others that were gassed, but the populations of homosexuals was lower or unknown at other camps. Camps were used to re-educate inmates through discipline and hard work. Their symbol in the camps was the pink triangle. Lesbians had the black triangle because they were considered asocials, but they were less targeted because of their reproductive abilities. Being gay was worse than being Jewish, which was confirmed through the records we found in this project. These mugshots are of homosexual prisoners, which I found some of at the museum. The one in the upper left is August Pfeiffer. He was born on August 8, 1895, and arrived to Auschwitz November 1, 1941, and died there a month later on December 28, 1941.
In the camps, the homosexual prisoners lived in barracks of all men, but because they were homosexual, they could not show any signs of friendship with their fellow prisoners or they would be killed. Because of this, they faced all of their struggles alone, which may have been a way that the Nazis psychologically tortured them. This quote from an anonymous Jewish Holocaust survivor shows how greatly the homosexual prisoners suffered and how quickly they died when they got to the camp. It also explains how some Nazi officials would take younger prisoners and use them for sexual favors. The survivor says that he wanted to be the one chosen because he would have gotten more food. In the camp, there were also many medical experiments. Some prisoners were injected with typhus so that the Nazi doctors could observe its progression. Dr. Karl Varney forced prisoners to take testosterone pills, and others were castrated as a way to cure their homosexuality.
Homosexuality was not legal until 1968 and 1969 in East and West Berlin respectively, and full equalization, especially regarding the age of consent, was not procured until 1994. Additionally, same-sex marriage itself in Germany remained illegal until 2017. One gay survivor of the Holocaust is Pierre Seal. Seal was a French Catholic man who knew he was gay but hid it from his very religious family. At age 17, he was arrested by Gestapo and taken to the Schirmeck security camp where he watched his lover die from a dog attack at age 18. Eventually, Seal somehow got released for good behavior, but he did not speak out until 1981 because homosexuality was still incredibly taboo. In that time between his release and speaking out, he married a woman, but they are now divorced.
Stefan Kaczynski grew up in a Roman Catholic family and worked for his family at the age of 14 to avoid being sent to a labor camp. During this time, he took part in a relationship with an Austrian soldier and had to report to the Gestapo on September 19, 1942, because he had been writing love letters to him, leading him to be imprisoned for his homosexuality. From there, he went on to several camps such as Kuranovo, but ended up escaping to the British occupation zone in Munich. Kaczynski then received a displaced persons card, returned to Poland, and wrote a book describing his suffering titled Damn Strong Love.
The Memorial to Homosexuals Persecuted Under Nazism was released on May 27, 2008. It was created by Michael Elmgreen and Ingar Dragset. Through the small window, people can watch a film of two people kissing. The memorial was made to honor the victims of the Holocaust and to remind people of the intolerance gays and lesbians faced.
This memorial is controversial due to the film presented inside, the way the memorial is not in clear view of the public, and the fact that it is right across from the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. Many argue that there should not be a comparison between the two, as Jews clearly faced major persecution numbers-wise, but it is also clear that the Nazis were the most sadistic to the homosexuals.